Good morning. My name is Kate Payne, and I am the Vice President of Communications at the NC Chamber. On behalf of our entire team, welcome to today's webinar, SBA Resources for All Businesses Impacted by Helene. Many of you are here at the invitation of your local Chamber of Commerce. We are their counterparts at the state level here at the NC Chamber, and I cannot tell you enough how grateful we are for their leadership and insights that are coming in from your local Chamber of Commerce as we work together to best identify ways to support businesses through this recovery. They are tirelessly advocating for you, and please know we are committed to doing the same. We're in this with you for the long haul, and we appreciate you letting us know what you need to recover and get people back to work. So without further ado, I'd like to now introduce our friends at the U.S. Small Business Administration. Mark Kulda is with the SBA's Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience. He is a public affairs specialist representing the SBA in their response here in North Carolina. He is currently located in Morganton, and we will be emailing you a PDF of the presentation that Mark is going to give, as well as a link to the recording of this webinar and any links to specific resources for your individual questions if we are not able to get to those in the Q&A at the end of the presentation. So Mark, take it away.
Thank you very much, Kate. We very much appreciate this. You'll notice on the very first slide here that Liliana Chanit, who is our public affairs specialist lead, was supposed to provide this presentation. She's busy, I think, helping open up another SBA disaster or business recovery center. And so she couldn't be here today. So apologies for that. I'm stepping in her place. I'm relatively new to the SBA, so hopefully I can answer some questions for you if I have them. If I don't have the answers, I'll certainly try to either pass along information as I can, or perhaps collect some contact information for you. But we'll get you in touch with folks that can answer if you have some highly technical questions. So as Kate mentioned, so the U.S. Small Business Administration, for those of you who have touched SBA in the past, you know that SBA provides a lot of resources to small businesses, usually on just the running of your business, et cetera, just in normal business operations. But there's a division of the SBA that deals with disaster recovery, and that's where we come from. We are part of the Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience, specifically the Field Operations Center East, which is located in Atlanta. And then that crew in Atlanta will dispatch folks like myself and other folks from operations to set up the operations in the disaster areas to help businesses start to, businesses and homeowners and renters and nonprofits start to recover from this. So we are here because of a presidential disaster declaration, because back just 2 weeks ago, it started as Hurricane Helene. By the time it got here to North Carolina, it was downgraded to a tropical storm. It didn't really matter. It still dumped prodigious amounts of rain, which caused immense damage, as you all know. And the disaster declaration for this, it's just the number that you might see in some of the paperwork and stuff, NC 20701. So we'd like to go ahead and just start talking about what our programs are. And we'll go to the next slide. We'll talk about Tropical Storm Helene. And here is the list of counties that are part of the Presidential Disaster Declaration. I know this is a lot of text to look at, but basically it's just a rundown of the counties that are listed. So for the disaster declaration itself, there's 25 counties in North Carolina, all listed there, and the eastern band of the Cherokee Indians are eligible as well. And those folks that are inside and businesses inside the disaster area are eligible for two types of loans that we'll get into in just a second, both a physical loan and then something we call economic injury disaster loans, EIDL. And so the folks that are inside that disaster declaration zone are eligible for both of those loans. However, we at the SBA recognize that there's going to be businesses affected that are potentially outside that disaster declaration zone. And so for counties that are immediately contiguous to the disaster counties are also still eligible for one of the types of loans, that EIDL loan, economic injury disaster loans. And so then we listed all of the counties that are contiguous to the 25 counties. And so businesses that you don't have to be necessarily in the disaster zone, you can be in a contiguous county and still be eligible for assistance. And then we talked just a little bit about the three ways, the three ways you can get information on how you can apply. The ways to do that are you can, if you want to, scan the QR code that you see there. That will, I think, take you to just the website, sba.gov/disaster. That's a place that you can go to start the application process. You can visit one of our centers. You can also call for information. Call 1-800-659-2955. They can help you locate one of our recovery centers. And again, these centers are opening up all the time. So it's important to potentially call there so you can know the latest information on the hours that the centers are open and where they specifically are located. And if ever you have any questions, you're welcome to call us at that number, 1-800-659-2955. You'll hear me say that several times here during the presentation. So let's talk a little bit about what the two kinds of loans are. And the first one is the most common one that people think about. It's the physical damage loans. Obviously, there's an immense amount of destruction in the area. Homes and businesses have suffered physical damage to their property, and the SBA does provide loans to those entities. It's not just businesses, it's homeowners as well. But these loans cover disaster losses that aren't covered by insurance or other sources. And it's important to note that this is meant for uninsured loss. So if you do have insurance coverage, either you might have a commercial policy that perhaps has flood coverage, or if you have a flood insurance policy, normally a standard homeowners and a standard business owners policy does not cover flooding. But if you had a flood policy, or if you might have had a commercial package that did have some flood coverage, those insurance proceeds would be deducted from a potential loan. You'll see a little bit later some of the documents we will need to present during the application process. One of them is the information on your insurance. And once the loan officer knows how much insurance is available, they can concoct a package together to provide a loan offer to you. And here's the part that most people don't understand. They don't really think about this. It's the Small Business Administration, but it's not just for businesses. We provide these loans to homeowners as well, homeowners and renters. So if you are a homeowner and renter and suffered physical damage either to your property itself or even to your personal possessions, your contents, those are also eligible for disaster assistance loans. Small businesses and even private nonprofit organizations. We have talked to many people who run nonprofits and didn't realize that this disaster assistance is available to nonprofit organizations as well. Then we talk about the maximum loan amounts. It's up to $500,000 for homeowners. And here's something that most businesses don't understand. We offer loans to businesses of all sizes with a limit of $2 million available to businesses and nonprofits. So there's a substantial amount of money available for those entities to help them recover. You can even borrow, and here we talk a little bit more about the personal possessions here. Renters and homeowners can borrow up to $100,000 to replace or repair their personal property. That includes things like cars, furniture, clothing, all the personal contents that you may have had that were either damaged or destroyed by the disaster. And then we also want to talk a little bit more about this to people and make them aware of the fact that we do have to think really as a society about making sure we can kind of prevent future risk. It's important to start thinking about resiliency, so that when we do rebuilding, that we do so in a way that we can try to think about preventing future losses. And we do have part of our loan program that makes people eligible, people and businesses, for up to an increase of 20% of the loan amount if you're willing to improve in a more resilient way so that we can help prevent the risk of future damage. So that's an important thing to think about. And as you're thinking about recovering and you're thinking about taking a loan, please strongly consider the idea of building in a more resilient manner. We'll provide some additional resources. Oftentimes, if you do that, you might have an insurance premium discount in that regard as well. But it's just an important thing to think about. You do have additional money available to you if you're willing to look at resiliency in the future. Now, let's go to the left side of the screen there and talk about the terms of these loans. The terms are very, very generous terms. You can have the loan term be spread out to as long as 30 years. Based on your ability to repay. You can have a very long repayment period, but also look at the interest rates. It's a fixed interest rate, low interest rate, 4% for businesses, 3.25% for the nonprofit organizations, and then a little over 2.8% for homeowners and renters. So these are very attractive interest rates. And then the next point is the one point that we really want to hammer home to people, because you don't have to make a payment and you don't have interest accruing for the entire first year. So you get access to this money. You can use this money without having to repay it right away and without having an interest accrual. And so that's really, especially for businesses, if you're able to, get some money to be able to get your business operating again, get cash flow going, you've got the use of this money basically for a year for free, right? And then after the year, you can start paying it back. But at least, hopefully, you'll be generating some income in your business and can easily be able to repay these loans. And importantly, for the physical loan, though, the physical application deadline is coming up. So it is important that if you want to consider your options, you might want to start the process as soon as you can, because that first physical loan application deadline is going to be November 27th, coming up in about 6 or 7 weeks from now. It's also important to note that, and I don't know if we have this in here, you're not obligated to actually fund the loan if you don't want to. So you could certainly go through the application process. You can do it before your insurance is resolved and get into the system. And you aren't obligated to actually take the loan if you don't want to. If you figure out that it's not right for you, you don't have to take it, and it's not a penalty for you. But it's great to be in the system. That way, if you do decide that you do want the money, if you're already in the system, you'll be able to get that money funded quicker if you're in the system, as opposed to starting fresh from the beginning. So that's the physical damage loans. Let's talk a little bit more about the ones that are available for businesses. This is the economic injury disaster loan, EIDL. This is meant to be basically working capital for small businesses and nonprofits if you've sustained an economic impact. So this is not a physical disaster loan. This is if your business has suffered an economic injury because of the disaster, you are eligible for an EIDL loan. You can do that whether or not you've had physical damage. So you may be a business owner in an area inside the disaster zone and you didn't suffer any physical damage to your business, but you did suffer an economic injury, you'd be eligible for an EIDL loan. Now, it is available whether you suffered any physical damage or not. You can get up to $2 million of EIDL money. It's meant to, help you with working capital that you need for injury that was caused by the disaster. It's not meant to do things like refinance existing debt. You can't refinance existing debt with this. It's not meant to be business interruption coverage. So, standard insurance policy covers business interruption insurance. It's not meant to be that. It's not meant to replace lost revenue or lost profits. You can't fund expansion. But basically, if you need to do working capital for things like continuing your payroll, or if you need to deal with your inventory, or maybe you want to rethink the way that your business operates, and you need to kind of think about having some capital available to do some things differently, not expand, but just do things differently and more smartly, then the EIDL loan is ideal for that. And again, the interest rates for that are, again, you have up to 30 years based on your ability to repay. It's that 4% for businesses, 3.25% for nonprofits. And again, there's no payments or no interest for the first year. You've got a year of the use of money to be able to do what you need to do without worrying about having to repay it. And then you can start paying after that first year if you want. So the businesses are encouraged to do that. And now here's something that's a little different than the physical damage loans, right? The deadline for the EIDL loans is a lot longer. You have until June of next year to apply for the EIDL loans. So there is a little more time for businesses to kind of consider whether or not you've been economically damaged, try to figure out what you want to do. And so that deadline is a little bit later for that. So let's talk a little bit about the requirements for loan approvals. The damaged property, it must be in a declared area. That's pretty obvious, right? This is a disaster declaration. The damaged property has to be in the declared area to be eligible for a loan approval. Now, these are loans, and as loans, you do have common loan terms, right? You have to have an acceptable credit history. So you have to show that you have an ability to repay. So there are some just simple things that are common in the lending world that you have to show an ability to pay back the loans, and so those will be taken into account. These are loans, so as such, there's often collateral required in any loan, usually. And so in this case, for the disaster loans that are in the declaration area and their loans are above $50,000, then there will be a collateral requirement, either real estate. If you don't have real estate collateral, you have to pledge some kind of collateral that is available. And you will not be declined for a lack of collateral, but you do have to pledge that you will provide collateral at some point. And the collateral requirements for the physical loan and the EIDL loans are separate. And this is important because businesses can have access to some money without collateral, because up to $100,000 of the loan can be done in an unsecured manner. So depending on the loan amount, excuse me, again, you can possibly get up to $100,000 in an unsecured manner for your use without having to pledge the collateral for that. So that's that slide. If we go to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about the documents that you'll need. If you do come to an SBA center, which again, we're trying to set up centers as quickly as we can in as wide geographically spread out area as we can to try to get to as many people as possible. So these are some of the things that you will need. We will need a cell phone number and contact information for all the applicants. That's very important because the loan officer folks will need to be able to get in touch with you. And so having that cell phone information and contact information is important. You will need to have proof of residence that you live in the disaster area. So hopefully you'll have your proof of residence with you. You need to have a social security number and your employer ID number for all of the owners of the property. So that's important to note that if you have co-owners, then both owners will have to provide that proof of information. So you will need to bring with you some financial information, income, account balances, your monthly expenses, et cetera. Your financial information for the business will need to be entered into the system for the loan officers to deliberate over. It's important, if you can, to provide a complete copy of your most recent federal income tax return. That's got very helpful information to the system processors. And so if you have that you really will need to provide that. So if you have your most recent federal income tax return, that'll be helpful. If you have your insurance information, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you have the information, and so the officers can know what proceeds you may be eligible for under your insurance policy, if they can know that ahead of time, that helps the process. They can put that into the calculation to come up with the loan offer that will be offered. And so having your insurance information is really, really helpful so that you can know what the final dollar amount will be on those loans. Let's talk now a little bit about the actual application process itself and what happens when you go on the portal. If you go to lending.sba.gov, you'll start that process of determining your eligibility. And we've got a screenshot of that page at the loan portal. And if you can see that, the two on the left are for earlier programs, the Paycheck Protection Program, the COVID EIDL programs. But if you go to the right, disaster assistance loan, that's the box that you'll want to deal with. You click on the blue box, it'll take you to, it has to search for what disaster declaration you're part of. So you'll have to put in what state and what county you live in. It will eventually determine that 20701, that number is the disaster declaration number. You'll eventually find that, and it'll start that process of putting in some information and setting up your own account on MySBA, and you can follow your loan's progress online that way. And then just some tips if you're going to apply online on our next slide here. You do need to provide your legal name as it appears on your federal tax filing form. And that's just important for consistency purposes. If you file federal taxes, you're already in the government system. It just makes it easier, and it's the way that the government processes this. You have to use the legal name that's on your tax form. So it would be helpful to avoid multiple login attempts. We don't want you to get locked out. So one of the easy ways, a little pro tip they have, is just to avoid having to reset your password, is just to take a photo of your username and password on your phone, and you can refer to it. That way you don't get locked out. We want you to have access and not get locked out of the system and have to do a password reset. So take a picture of your username and password, an easy way to do it. So again, also we mentioned that if your business is jointly owned between you and other folks, all of the joint owners need to be either in person at the center or signing up online. It's a joint application, and all of those identity documents, need to be provided by all of the joint owners. So it's important that it's a joint application, and we have to collect information from all of them. So, and then also, if you're going to do this online, just know that you're going to get a lot of notifications in your email. When you provide us your email address, you'll get updates on how the loan is progressing. You should consider monitoring that portal every day so you can be up to date on what's happening. You should monitor your email every day. Just know that, these are government emails, so they're going to be, automatically generated. There's a lot of text in the email. A lot of email servers, the spam prevention programs might look at that email and think that it's spam and send it to the spam folder. So you can check your spam folder. It's also really not a bad idea just to add SBA.gov to your safe senders list. And if you do that, then all the email from SBA will come through. You won't have to go through your spam folder. So those are just good tips to have about preventing problems in terms of getting communications from the SBA. Let's talk now about our recovery centers, because these are the places that you can go to in person, and we highly encourage you to do that if you can. It just makes it a little bit easier because then you might be able to present documents in person. They can validate your ID in person. It's just a little bit easier. Right now, we have 3 of them. As I said at the beginning, I think we're in the process of opening. There might even be 2 or 3 opening today. There'll be a news alert about that when that happens. I think we're in the process literally this minute of trying to get a couple of them open in some other cities, but these are the ones that I can tell you about right now. The biggest one is back over in Charlotte in Mecklenburg County. That's a disaster loan outreach center, and that's actually located in our district office where Mike Ariola, our district director, is office there in Charlotte. We do have a disaster loan outreach center set up there to have people come in and start the application process there, have their questions answered. We also have 2 business recovery centers that are open right now. One is in Boone at the Appalachian Enterprise Center, and then we have one housed inside the Asheville Chamber. Kit Kramer has been just absolutely phenomenal in helping us set up there. Many of you may know, maybe you saw the news, the SBA administrator, our administrator Guzman, did a tour of Asheville and went by the chamber offices there, the Business Recovery Center, to thank the people that are there, meet with some of the business owners who are applying for assistance. And Kit and her staff have been just phenomenal in helping. I can't thank them enough. It's been very helpful to have that center there in an area that's very hard hit. And I know it's very busy every day. So I visited there on Tuesday, actually Monday and Tuesday. And it's busy and open. I just know that these business recovery centers are here to help you. And we're trying to open as many as we can. So look for more information on that, hopefully here, maybe even today, about where those centers are. So we do have a resource partner network that are available. On the next slide, you can see that you can go to that website, sba.gov/local assistance. For any of you that's ever been involved with touching with the SBA, you know that we provide a lot of resources to small businesses, and not always just from SBA. We have a lot of partners that help us. And so these are all partners who are approved and funded by the SBA. We have 1,400 of them nationwide, including many in Western North Carolina. They provide all kinds of guidance and assistance and just help. It's not a bad idea to reach out, beyond the disaster assistance. Just reach out with questions that you might have about running the business, how to get things going, tips that you can use, best practices. All of those are available through our resource partners. We highly encourage you to just look them up if you can. So, and then finally on our last page, just know that just going through some of the information about where you can get information, just once again, the Office of Disaster Recovery and Resiliency has a bunch of contact information here. You can go to sba.gov/disaster. There's some, that's the portal that you would use to start your process, but there's also just frequently asked questions there. You can always call the customer service center. They're very helpful on the 800 number, 800-659-2955. If you are deaf of hard of hearing, this is important. We do have access to the TDD, telecommunication relay services. So you can even dial 711 from that and be able to access the ability to get your questions answered there. Or if you want to, maybe it's a technical question that you don't have time to talk to somebody on the phone in the middle of the night. You just want to fire off an email. Not a bad idea. You can put in a lot of details in those emails about detailed questions if you want. If it's kind of a complex question, it's not a bad idea to get it in writing, and then you can email it to disastercustomerservice@sba.gov, and they will be able to answer those questions and get back to you, hopefully quickly, with some detailed answers to those questions if you just want to send us an email as well. That's really it for the presentation. Really thank you. Thanks to Kate and the North Carolina Chamber and all the folks that we've been in touch with. We do have some materials that are available at the centers, and I know Kate's been, sending out our fact sheets. We've got a very detailed fact sheet that I know that I can't put the background here. It's got all kinds of information that we've sent out, and I think that you all may have gotten copies of this in your email. That answers a lot of questions. We've got flyers that kind of make it easy to understand. We've got social media tiles. If you have a social media account, you want to help spread the word, we've got that available as well. We're just here to hopefully spread the word, hopefully answer the questions that you have, but hopefully more importantly, just really encourage people to reach out and start the process. Even if you don't think you're going to take the loan, sign up anyway. It's good to get into the system. It's not going to hurt you. You're under no obligation to take the money if you don't want to. Do it soon. You don't have to wait for insurance. That way you're in the system already, right? And you can know that relief is available to you, whether or not you want the money. But then eventually, if you decide that you do want the money, then you don't have to worry about the deadlines. You're already in the system, right? And you can decide at a later time, hey, I'm going to take the money. So that's it for the presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have at this point.
Mark, thank you. We do have a few questions.
Yes.
And probably most common is, are we going to share these slides in the recording? Yes, we will.
Yes.
Along with
Yes.
all of the documents Mark is referencing, we will make sure you have a link to access all of that information and share it out with your networks if that's appropriate,
Yes.
or use it for yourself. Very specific question, Mark. The SBA business loan is a straight 4%. So
Yep.
this person has seen 4%, they've seen 8%.
Yes.
Just want to know more about that.
Yes. So I should point this out. We are not intending to be in competition with private lenders. So if you have the ability to get a loan somewhere else, we strongly encourage you to do that. And so we are intended to be the loan source of last resort. So if you do have access to credit somewhere else, then our rates are higher because we would actually prefer you to get the loan somewhere else, right? We are the lender of last resort. And so there are two different interest rates. The interest rate that you've seen that's 8%, that's meant for if you can get credit somewhere else. So the interest rates are higher if you can get credit elsewhere, but that's because we would prefer you to go elsewhere. Only if these rates that I give you are only if you have not been able to get credit elsewhere. So that's a great point. But again, that 4% rate is for situations where you're not able to get credit elsewhere.
And would that be the same for homeowners or renters? There's criteria that might rate that rate.
Yeah. Remember, there's 3 tiers of rates there: businesses, nonprofits, homeowners, renters. And the rates that I gave you for, if you can't get credit elsewhere, the rates are definitely higher if you can get credit elsewhere.
Right. And does private nonprofit organizations, does that include churches?
I've heard, I don't know the specific answer to that, and I'll get that answer to that question because I don't know for sure, and I don't want to go beyond what I don't know. So,
okay, we will follow
but
up,
I know that's been asked before. There's been talk about that, so I know we have an answer to that. I just don't know what it is, so I'll make sure that I get it to you.
Perfect. Appreciate that. I think you covered this, but any initiation fees, if you pay it off in the first 12 months, would there be any fees of any kind?
Yeah, so that's the information we have is 0% interest and no payments. That means the interest doesn't accrue. I think that there's no prepayment penalty is kind of the term that we would use in that case. I will also get that answer back to you because it's not in our information, and it should be probably, right? We talk about payments, but we don't talk about prepayment penalty. I actually have that on my list of questions. I had a list of questions for the folks that put the slides together, and they didn't answer that in the slides. So I will get that answer back to you as well. I'm sorry that I don't have that. I'm new. This is only my second week at the SBA, so I probably should have led with that.
Right? No pressure. You're doing great.
This is my second week at SBA, so I don't have all the answers, and I'll get as many answers as I can. Let's keep going on the questions.
Thank you for that. And if you have any questions, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Just go ahead and add those there. What if the information that's required to get the loan, Mark, has been destroyed? Yep.
And so that's where we're going to try to get the information to our system. And that's where the loan officers have to make that individual decision, right? They're going to have to try to figure out, are there alternate sources to get the information? There might be a way to get some bank records. Maybe you had paper copies of them, and maybe the bank has a separate copy online that we can figure out a way to get access to that information. They'll work on trying to figure out how to get the information from you. So even if you don't have physical access to it, That's what the loan officers are for. They're very good at, and they've been through this before. So this is not the first time they've been through this. They know what to do when someone comes in and doesn't have any information. I was at one of the centers the other day, and a business owner came in and said, look, I lost everything. And that has happened. And that is a terribly tragic thing to have to go through. We want to make this as easy as possible. And I know that the loan officers are skilled at making sure that they can figure out ways to get information when the person doesn't have a physical copy in their hand. We can figure out ways to creatively come up with the information.
Appreciate that. And for folks who do have that information, maybe online, is there any requirement to go in person, or can they just do all of this virtually if they have what they need for that?
I'm not sure if the portal, the SBA portal, so when you do sign up for SBA and you start that process online, I don't know. I actually tried to go through it myself just so I could inform myself of how that looks. And I can't, I'd have to actually set up an account, and I don't live here, so I can't. Well, I didn't get past the identity phase. So I'm not sure if you can electronically upload. I'm sure they make it easy for you. That's certainly a question that if you called the 800 number, to ask for more assistance on signing up, or if you even just start the process, just it doesn't hurt to go through the process and see. But usually they try to make it easy, so that might be one thing they allow you to do is virtually, but I can't answer that for sure.
Appreciate that. Understand. We have
Yep.
a few questions about if there are existing loans for a business, specifically
Yes.
if there's an EIDL loan that was
Yep.
received in the COVID shutdown. Will that impact your
Right.
ability to get the same type of loan for this?
In terms of eligibility, the answer is no, because they're separate and distinct events, and your eligibility for assistance based on this disaster is not affected by the fact that you had a COVID EIDL loan before. What is trickier is that these loans are not meant to refinance other loans. So they're used for working capital, but not necessarily refinancing other loans. So, that's something that the loan officer would work through. Obviously, if someone's gotten a COVID EIDL loan, you'll already be in the system. So it might actually make things a little bit easier because some of your information might already be in the system. It would be, there's less information you have to upload for the first time. So it would make it easier, but they will be treated separately.
Okay. And do those SBA loans interact with existing bank loans? Are they considered subordinate debt?
I'm sorry, say that again. You broke up just a little bit there.
The SBA loans, do they interact with your existing bank loans? And would they be considered subordinate debt?
Well, again, there would have to be collateral obligations, and then in order of, I guess what you're asking is what's the order of if there was a non-repayment, who gets preference. I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that, if you've ever been in default on a government loan, it's going to make it harder to get another government loan. So the government's always usually pretty good about making sure they have priority to getting repaid. So in terms of, is it subordinate? I'm not sure. It may not be. So the federal government usually jumps ahead of some things there. That's something that can be answered on by calling the 800 number. In terms of, does it affect your ability to get a loan having previous debt? That's a good question because it gets to credit worthiness, right? And so there will be a credit worthiness assessment done, as we mentioned a little earlier. The question is, how much debt there was there and what the repayment terms were on that other debt, right? And whether there was an adequate repayment history, because the SBA loan is going to be predicated on the fact that you are able to repay the loan. So that will be taken. That's something that, the loan officer will take into account.
Absolutely understand that. And a couple of questions about forgiving the loans already. And I imagine that's a bit of a crystal ball question, but if you have
That's
the insight.
way above our pay grade, right? That's a whole other discussion. Is there the possibility? I mean, who knows what the possibilities are, right? I don't know that I've seen that, so I'm not sure. But again, that's a discussion that would happen, by larger powers, and I can't even speculate on that.
That's absolutely the case. Now, proof of residency for the disaster area. Some folks are asking if they own a business there, but they are not a resident. Does ownership of
Yes.
the asset, the business, provide that?
The way it's been, I actually, so I put in a question about that very question because I was concerned about the wording of the presentation here. The only thing I can say is the wording of the presentation makes it sound as if, and I'm going to go back to that slide here for me, makes it sound as if that you do have to live in the area. Where's the wording here? I lost
So
it.
that sounds like something that maybe you and I can follow up on, and we can send that in our recap.
Yes,
If
yes, that would
your
be great because
business
it,
is
yeah.
actually in
So
that area.
one of the bullet points in the slide was proof of residence in the disaster area declared. And so my interpretation of that sounds like you have to prove that you live in the area. So I'm not certain that if you live outside the area, but your business is in the area, that you'd be eligible. That's a question that you may not be. So,
Okay, well, we'll follow up on that and
yep,
hopefully let folks know about that. And making an appointment, I know that somebody's asking about that. You all have kind of encouraged trying to make an appointment at the
it's
disaster recovery centers.
yeah, that's just a little workflow issue. I mean, you're not required to have an appointment. It's certainly, it's a little helpful. It's helpful for you and for us to be able to plan, but it's absolutely not necessary. You don't have to have an appointment. You can just show up, in Asheville. When you come into the Business Recovery Center, they've got a little sign-up sheet. So you just sign up and sit down, and if there's nobody there, you can be seen immediately. If they're waiting on people, you may have to wait a little bit. I've seen it both ways. I've seen where there's been nobody there. I've seen when the lobby is full. So it just, an appointment's not necessary, but if you can do it, it's just more convenient. Might be, like I said, even more convenient for you as well, because then you know what to plan for. You won't have a long wait if you have an appointment. Then you save your time. The time value, the value of your time is important, and so we don't want you to waste your time. If making an appointment means that there's less waiting time, then maybe that's not a bad thing to do.
Absolutely. And some folks are asking about making individuals aware of some of these programs, and then where can they
Yes,
find the social media tiles? And I'm happy to take that one. We will send a resource
yes,
kit out to you all. Mark has been great about sharing information with us at the NC Chamber. We'll share that.
yep,
We would encourage all of you that have heard this information and learned it to help us amplify it. We'll be pushing it out. I know your local chambers on the ground there will be doing the same. And all of you that are employers, letting your employees know about these programs, because they are
yes.
obviously individuals that can also benefit a lot from taking advantage of these. That would be great. And so
That's probably one of the first things, and I see it one of the questions there about the B in Small Business Administration. Most people assume that those are all business loans, and that's absolutely not true. And I can just give you firsthand knowledge of this. I myself was a recipient of an SBA loan as an individual homeowner. I lived in Cedar Rapids, Iowa at the time in the 1990s. Cedar Rapids was the site of three really devastating floods. I was part of the first one, and I had basement damage that was not covered by insurance. I did buy the backup of sewer and drain endorsement, so I got $5,000, but I had about $10,000 in damage. And then once they took my deductible off, I did get a $9,000 loan from the SBA, even though I was just a homeowner. So individuals absolutely are eligible for this disaster assistance. And sometimes, if they didn't have flood insurance, which many people don't, they may have nothing. We may be the only source. And so that's why we're very happy to help out. It's really a low interest rate for individuals. It's a substantial amount of funding that can be available to repair or even rebuild the home if necessary, including the contents. If you mentioned the contents, remember, cars are included in that content. So if your car was if your car was flooded, you shouldn't really be driving it, right? For a safety issue. If your car was flooded, you really should consider, getting rid of it and getting another car. If you have comprehensive insurance coverage, that does cover flood damage, right? So if you had collision comp on your car, you'll get that. But if you were uninsured for that, you can apply for this assistance that can help pay for a new car for you. So,
great. Well, and if there is damage to property, if property is lost, and then there's also revenue loss for the foreseeable future.
right.
Is there can you get both loans? Is that something they should speak to a loan officer about?
Yeah, well, you can certainly apply, right? And for the first part, business property, obviously, they're two separate loans. The property loan is different from the idle loan, but it's important to note because you use some terminology there, lost income. The idle loan is not for lost income, right? It's for working capital for other things. If you need to, continue your payroll, if you need to replenish your inventory, things like that. It's not meant to, compensate you for the loss of income because that was supposed to be covered under a business interruption policy. And so it's not used for that, but it is still a substantial amount of money that's available.
how soon are funds delivered after the loan application is accepted? How long is the typical turnaround for approval?
Yep, I don't know the exact timing. And, a lot of that just depends on how much information you're able to provide upfront. If you can, give them all of the information so that the loan officer can start working on the complete file right away, then it can be turned around quickly. We get daily stats, and I know loans have already been let out. So we've had thousands and thousands of applications already, and the money is already flowing. They give us a detailed number of how many loans have been, funded already, and I can tell you it's been a lot. So the money is already flowing, and if you can provide as much information as possible up front, it'll make that process that much faster.
That's great. Well, and to that point about information up front, proving the physical damage, do they need an adjuster summary report,
Right.
for example?
Well, I don't. That's another question I'm not exactly sure of. I know that we've been asked to make sure you document. It's always a good idea just to document for insurance purposes and all the other purposes. Document with photos. So if you have photo documentation, that can certainly help start that process. But I don't have a very clear answer on that. I'm not quite sure what they're going to need for you to prove that you've had this loss. So what you can do is certainly, that's one of those that you can certainly have answered through the 800 number, or I can try to put that down and see about getting an answer to some of your questions that you might be able to do another information release to the folks that are on the call here.
Absolutely, that'd be great. And a few folks are just asking if you know anything about how to prove that they cannot get credit elsewhere, that they've been denied, or how that might look.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we would look for. Perhaps is a denial potentially. Usually, in areas of disaster like this, you kind of know if the lenders are active or not. But that's not something that's certain. So I am not sure if you're going to need an actual denial from a lender first. That's again another question that I'll have to ask and see if I can get back to you on. I apologize for not having a lot of these.
There are a lot of very detailed questions, and we appreciate you making the time, and we know you're the right person to help connect us with resources. A lot, again, just for everyone, a lot of the contact information does let you know so that folks can react to your individual case and help you with the best, most specific information to get the resources that you need. For folks that do get that 8% rate mark, would they still have the 0 interest for the first year?
I have not been told that there's any difference between the repayment terms. The only difference is the interest rate. So the repayment terms would stay the same. It's just a different interest rate. The loans are identical except for the interest rate.
Okay. Will there be any more in-person locations, especially in the smaller communities?
We are efforting that as we speak. As I said, I think there's going to be even possibly 2 or even 3 today. I just talked yesterday to a business owner in a small town that was offering up space, and so we're going to take him up on that. And one of the things that we do is we go into the small towns and see if we can acquire space. And if we can, we will open up a BRC, Business Recovery Center, if we can. So, we are doing what we can to find the locations of need. And in an area where there will be a lot of need, we will open centers. So we are in the process of doing that. But, in a disaster area, it's just difficult to get around. It's difficult to get information. It's difficult to know who, specifically to talk to, how to get the word out that, hey, it's open now. It's kind of what we do. And so that's what we're in the process of doing right now.
Absolutely. And if folks have an individual, like a local banker that they've worked with in the COVID loan, is that the best person to start with? You mentioned your network. Should they start there, or would it be preferable to go directly to the SBA resources?
Yeah, you should. I mean, even if you've had a COVID loan, you should go ahead and go through the disaster process. It's these are new loans. That other program was a separate program. This is a different kind of program that's been in existence even way before the COVID loans were. So the best thing to do is to start the process anew. But my point is that you'll already have been known to the SBA since you were already in the system, and that may make things a little bit easier. So that's why it's not a bad idea to start it, but you'll go through the disaster loan process.
Okay, so should they start with you all then, kind of through that portal, or with their local banker? Okay.
Yep. No, I would go ahead and start with the portal. So, but again, I think it'll go easier. So. Yep.
Well, that's great. Yeah, it'll go easier if you've been in there before. Now, businesses with multiple locations in the declared disaster area, Any insights or suggestions for those folks, or is that going to be a pretty specific?
Well, and you're saying that, are we saying that all three businesses have suffered a loss?
I
It's
think
just to say
they've been impacted
Yeah.
at each of the locations.
Well, I mean, each location is going to have a different profile, and if you apply for the assistance, then the loan officer will take all that information. Each property is different. I am not sure if that means that will increase the ability to get more money, but just know that up to $2 million is available, and so because that's a substantial amount of money, even if you have multiple businesses, hopefully that limit would be enough to help you.
Okay. A lot of questions asking they want to clarify if you have a high credit score that you are not eligible for the 4% and below interest rate.
So the credit score doesn't really have anything to do with the interest rate. I just want to make that clear. It's if you have the ability to get a loan from a different lender. So that doesn't necessarily mean your credit score is up there. That's just really about the marketplace. Are lenders, willing to lend in these areas? And if they are, and you're eligible for one of their loans, then you're going to have the higher interest rate. That's not really a credit score per se question.
Okay, that's helpful.
Right. Now, I will say this though, and this is important. If you have a high credit score, you're going to be more eligible for the loan. It's if you have a low credit score and you've had either you've had a history where you've shown an inability to repay the loan, well, that's going to be taken as a factor, and you're going to have a tougher time getting a loan approved. So I just want to be clear about that. Some people don't understand that. I've seen some of the questions here. So if you have a high credit score, you're going to pay more. No, that's not what that means. That just means that you might be able to get a better deal somewhere else. We hope you do. We absolutely hope that the lenders come in and, we hope the lenders are under what our rate is, quite honestly, because ideally you'd be able to get the loan from a private business, not us, because when you do that, then more money is in the local economy, right? So ideally, we are not trying to compete with banks at all. We hope lenders come in. We hope lenders come in with lower interest rates would be great. But if a lender's not available, we're here to offer you a pretty low rate.
That's great. And a few people, yes, this is recorded. Yes, we will share the recording with you as well as a PDF of the slides so that you can have access to those. Asking for a friend who attempted to complete online, had some web issues. I'm hearing you say, Mark, there is a phone number. People can hop on that phone line and try to connect that way. It sounds
you
like
can, and you can also email too. If let's say you were trying to do something and it wasn't working very well and you had a question, you could send in the email to the customer service folks as well.
Awesome. We also have folks sharing other resources, and we will make sure to include those in the recap email. We will give you a link where we are aggregating those. And so I know, for example, Mountain BizWorks and Golden Leaf have some bridge loans. We will share some details on how to access that information. And so you can send me an email always at kpayne, K-P-A-Y-N-E @ncchamber.com with any resources that you want us to get out there to folks on the call today for the larger constituency there. Who should they get in touch with if they are in a smaller town and have a place they can host a recovery center, Mark?
You should contact one of our public affairs specialists. Our protocol is that our lead, so Liliana is our lead in this case, she gets in contact with what we call field operations. And so field operations are the people who go in and actually set up the centers and staff them with customer service reps. And we have that process because this is what we do. So you can, if you want to let Kate know and she can let me know, I'll make sure that Liliana gets that information and get that protocol going. We'd love to do that as much as possible. We're in the process right now of assessing where we need to be and where we can get these offices open in the best places.
We have a lot of questions. Y'all give me a second here. I'm scrolling through. A lot of them are the same, and I'm hoping that we are answering all of them for you today.
Right. There's one I want to, if you do, I have access to that too. And if you wouldn't mind me interrupting here, there was a question about if you don't have the credit score required, can the SBA suggest what can be done to reach the credit score to take advantage of the deadline? And that's something that, we had to slide on our resource partners because that's not necessarily something that the disaster people could do, right? That's not we can't give you advice on how to get a better credit score, but if you look at our resource partners, these are the people who can advise you as a business, just your general how to run a better business. And that includes how to get a better credit score. So if you reach out to our resource partner network, they have the business operations expertise to help you. We've got one, if you're familiar with that, there's even a group that's, I don't remember the acronym SCORE. I don't remember what that stands for, but it's a group of the something core of retired executives. These are people who used to run businesses and they know how to run businesses. And these are retired people who are volunteering their time on telling you best practices on just tips they learned in running their business, ways you can run it better. And those resources are available. So if you want to figure out how to get your credit score better, those are the kind of people you can ask about that.
Any others you see in there, Mark, that we didn't get to that you want to? I will say, folks, there are a lot of questions still in here.
Yep. Somebody asked about whether HOAs are a homeowners association. So that gets a little trickier because then, do HOAs, how much property do they own, right? HOAs could be eligible for an SBA loan under a nonprofit because they are technically nonprofit. So, it's certainly worth asking and going through the process and seeing. And if so, then they would be eligible for the nonprofit rate. If they need to borrow money for whatever reason, they would for an HOA.
And are there the two tiers for nonprofits as well?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first
part
of the question.
Are there the two interest rates for nonprofits?
Yeah, same thing, same exact thing. There's the interest rate for if you're not eligible to get a loan elsewhere, and then if you are able to get credit elsewhere. So yes.
And if a nonprofit has no collateral, will that prevent them from?
Hold on, let me go back to a second. So I need to talk about nonprofits because again, for EIDL loans, then it is only available if there's no credit available elsewhere. I'm looking at my fact sheet here. On the physical damage loans, that's when there's the two-tier loans, right? But on the EIDL loans, the rate is the 3.25. Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's great. There is a Mark great job in here in the questions, and we thank you. And I would echo that. I think we've gotten to a lot of these things. Some of them are very, very specific to your case, and I hope that you will get this information on the screen right now. Please jot it down. We will email it out to you. We will send you the recording of this webinar. And I just want to thank again, Mark, because we are out of time and we're not going to be able to get to every single question. Okay. But thank you for you and your team, the SBA team, for what you're doing to support North Carolina businesses in this recovery. And to you, our business community, we are so glad you were able to be here today. Thank you for the engagement and for the questions. We will continue to post resources on our website, ncchamber.com/Helene. And we will kick that link out to you as well. And if you have anything else that would be helpful, don't hesitate to click there and get in touch with us and let us know what you might need. But thank you for the work that you're doing to create jobs in our state. And we see you, we hear you, and we are committed to aggregating and amplifying your voices in this recovery. So please keep talking to us, to your local chamber leaders. We're all in this together. Thank you so much for being with us today, and stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Mark.
Thank you.